Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Actors Area. I'm your host, Sean Robert Grant. So happy to have you back here with me. And really just happy to, let's adjust that real quick. There we go. Just basically happy to contribute. Last week, there were an enormous amount of downloads on this podcast. So I just want to say thank you to each and every one who has who actually participated, who actually decided to download and give this podcast a chance. And I just want you to know how much that means to me because, you know, what it really comes down to for me is really helping you guys any way that I can, which is why today's message is so important to me because, you know, I really begin to feel like there is, how do I put it? The industry is always evolving. The entertainment industry is always evolving, and it's interesting because whether it's a pandemic, whether it's a new technological revolution, whether it's somebody just wants to change the rules, whatever it is, it's always changing. I've been an actor for over 13 years, and I've seen it change a multitude of times. And now COVID-19 has changed it tremendously, right? So the way we even audition now is completely different than how it was beforehand. Rarely are you seeing in-person auditions at this point. And that favors the actor in a lot of ways, I feel, you know, because self-taping gives you the opportunity to do it a couple times until you feel like you get it right, and then you can send it in. That's like definitely highly in favor of the actors and actresses. But ultimately, I gave you that example because I just wanted you to know that it's always changing. It's always transforming, right? And for us as performers, the number one thing we can do is not get too tied into being experts, right? Because here's what I feel, here's what I know to be true because I've seen it unfold and happen a multitude of times. Someone becomes an expert in a certain era of this industry, and they feel as if once they've got all the information they need and wisdom, it's like the holy grail. They don't need to evolve or change at any point in time. And then all of a sudden you find out that person to be in obscurity 5-6 years later. Why? Because when you look at people who have evolved to have, you know, these careers that are decades long, it's because they continue to change. They continue to transform, right? Look, I mean, unless you're pretty well known for something as an actor, a lot of times you've got to have a social media that has a certain amount of followers. Is that fair? Hell no, it's not fair. But at the same time, that's the way that it's changing. That's the way that it's evolving. That, you know, a lot of times, unless you have a director or producer that is really tied to the art of a situation, they are without a doubt going to bring in the most marketable individual, right? That didn't always be the case, but now it's the case. So now we got to realize it's not even necessarily about talent. It's about how you look to certain people, right? In a certain light. Now, I'm not saying that to be a pessimist, but I'm saying that to take that into account if the time comes that you need to reevaluate how you're approaching your career, okay? Because, and this is why the vibrational actor teaches the whole idea of intuition, right? And trusting your gut, because your intuition is always a bunch of steps ahead of everybody. So it helps you to evolve with the times, right? And as you evolve with the times, you're going to continue to succeed. Now, in my experience, when I chose not to evolve, what tended to happen was I was stuck. I was stuck in a time period where film and television had evolved way past beyond it, and I couldn't figure out why everything was the way that it was. So you know what I had to do? And this is the topic of today's episode. I had to get out of my own way. I had to release everything that I once thought made me a so-called, so what expert, thought leader, process, whatever it is. I was stuck in one area and the entire industry was evolving. So you know what I had to do? I had to say, you know what? I can't rest on my laurels. And what I mean is I can't rest on what I've done in the past. I've got to allow my career to continue to speak for me over the years, over the time that elapses. It has to speak in that regard, right? It has to speak for me in that regard. I can't tell you what to do and then not have a body of work to show you that I know what I'm doing, right? There was a time when that was for real. But now, especially on the business side of acting, it changes, and that's what business does, evolve, right? What happens to businesses that don't evolve? They die, right? They die, and people get upset at places like, if you live in South Florida, it's Publix in Winn-Dixie, Louisiana is Winn-Dixie, California, Ralph's, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, So when you begin to understand that these places have evolved with the industry, and that's the only people that gain success are the ones who evolve with the industry, right? And so now as actors, we have to evolve with the industry, which means what? Which means everything that happened a few months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, a year and a half ago, whatever it is, you always have to evaluate. And you know how you evaluate? You wipe the slate completely clean and you ask yourself, am I in perfect alignment to continue to have success as an actor? Am I in congruence with the industry and the flow of where the industry is going as far as my work is concerned, right? And if you're fortunate enough to have an agent or a manager who is continually changing with it, you're on point, right? Because you're always in the loop. But let's say you're starting out, or you've been in and you don't have that luxury yet. You've got to read, right? You've got to read stuff. You got to, tie into what's going on around the industry. And look, you don't have to be obsessive about it, but all I'm saying is just be aware, right? Because you never want to be the person to get caught with the pants down. But just be aware of what's going on. Be aware, pay attention, illuminate yourself on everything that's going on. A lot of times, so if you're a member of SAG and you have an account with them, every time you sign to your account, SAG gives you an update as to what's happening, what's unfolding within the industry, within the union and stuff like that. So you can always stay abreast of what's happening as far as how things change, like COVID protocols and stuff like that. All these things are stuff that we need to know. But how do we know it without getting stuck? Okay? And here's a surefire bet for you to be able to realize this and understand this without getting stuck. So what I usually do at the end of every year is I reflect on that year. I reflect on the work that I put in. I reflect on the willingness I was able to learn and also the willingness that I was able to teach. And I reflect to see where that draws me to, right? And then right after I've done that, I release in the most loving, sincere possible way everything that I've done, right? I let it go and I start to see what the next year is going to hold, right? I used to get into this habit of thinking that each year was going to be the same. It was never the case. It was never the case. Amazingly enough, 2009 and 2018 were both years where I only booked one role per year, right? Just one role. And that was it. And it was a done deal. It was more or less an internal year to learn, to grow, to see what's going on, to see how the industry evolves, to check out different streaming platforms and stuff like that. So those are just examples. But ultimately, it became about me being able to put that behind me and say, okay, who am I in this industry? Who is Sean Grant in this industry in 2021, right? What is Sean Grant capable of in this industry? And I'm saying my name, but I mean, you say your name in 2021. Who does Jeff Price need to become? Who does Catherine Jones need to become to be a success this year in this industry in 2021? And so that may seem futile. What it does, it gets your mind brewing. And it's a great idea to write stuff down like this. It gets your mind brewing. It gets your mind stirring as to, okay, because if you're on the lookout for something new getting ready to happen, you're much more ready and certain to be able to embrace it as it comes. So you're always willing to be the student, right? You can be a teacher, you can be a coach and everything else, but if you're going to be good, you've got to be one that always is willing to be a student. And it's in that being a student that enables us to be aligned with how the industry evolves. Because when you can ride the wave of change, when you can ride the wave of change in the entertainment industry, in acting, in life, you succeed. If you get trampled and stuck by the undertow, you drown, right? So it's important to look at everything that you got going on and say, is this in congruence to industry standards where I'm at right now? Because if it's not, I'm not booking any work, then I know why. It's a simple fix. It's not anything bad, it's just a simple fix, right? I need to get up to industry standards. So let me do that. Let me take care of that, right? And it's just that simple, but it's being willing to get out of your own way, to not be stuck on success of the past, but to be a student of the acting industry, of the entertainment industry, to learn from people, from other people, from other actors, from books, from whatever it is. Be willing to learn and be willing to open yourself up to the truth that's there to help you to be your best. Because I promise you, when you do this, you're going to be surfing. You're going to be riding the wave. And there's never going to be a time where anything comes that disrupts you from being your absolute very best in that regard. And it's pretty amazing when you begin to look at, instead of just trying to take life or take an area of life, like acting, and just put it into a box and keep it there to stay stagnant. Let's just imagine it's a tornado. And as a tornado moves, it evolves. It becomes bigger, becomes wider, becomes smaller, and it goes through all these changes. And, industries and life is a lot like that. So do you grab onto the coattails and you just evolve with it, right? Or do you try to diffuse it and stop it from spinning and evolving just so you can keep it where it is? And that's what you always have to ask yourself. That's what we always, all of us, have to be mindful of, because it's that will enable us to be the very best that we can be in this industry and in everywhere we go, right? Never feel intimidated. Never feel offended. Always look to see what's the latest that's going on, right? What am I not know? Look, there's been times where I wanted to see what the industry looked like, so I decided to go work as an extra or stand in, right? Or any job that allowed me to get close to see what was happening, right? And it's absolutely ideal to always know, to always be in the loop, because once you are, guess what? You're finding footing that's going to set you up to not only just succeed, but to be fulfilled. It's going to set you up to do really well, right? And that's what it counts. That's the whole reason why we do this podcast, is to help you to do well. And I'm telling you, get out of your own way. I've clung to old success time and time again, only to have it get me nowhere. It wasn't until I wiped my slate clean that says, you know what, I'm a student, I'm willing to learn. Let's see where this goes. Did things begin to open up? Why? Because I'm taking a receptive approach to it as opposed to I'm taking the industry by storm. You see what I'm saying? So, with that being said, guys, remember, this is a great time to start. It's still early in the year. Take a moment, really open yourself. Like I said, be a novice. Open yourself to what the industry is doing. Find out new ways, meditate on new ways, and allow people to come into your life to show you, right? Open yourself up to a whole new world because, like I said, I can't say it enough, but the more you ride the wave of life, the more you ride the wave of the industry, the greater your career will be. And more importantly, the better you'll feel because you'll feel successful and connected intuitively because you were led and guided in a way that most people weren't. But all you had to do was just go within and begin to feel that and understand it. All right? With that being said, guys, thank you so much for joining me today. It has been an absolute pleasure. We'll talk soon. Take care. Bye-bye.